Sophie was told to leave the court by the police officer, who also pointed out that she had a gang behind her. Bro, she has the support of her gang. It's Caitlin there. We had Sophie Cunningham, Kane, and Chloe standing at half court to see how Odyssey Sim was doing. When the Fever players stood up, a policeman confronted them. Therefore, Odyssey Sims is holding her head down. I don't believe so, and Sophie deserves praise for not giving up in the least. This security agent then appeared and began to shout, "Hey, you guys, get back! Return." "Hey, we're across the half-court line," Sophie was essentially saying. For example, what's the issue? Aren't we merely seeing how our teammate is doing? The sobbing, jeering Atlanta Dream supporters are being mocked by Caitlin Clark. What about that? What about that? The unthinkable happened 2 minutes ago. Caitlin Clark found herself caught in the midst when a police officer intervened. The entire WNBA community is talking about them because they went too far. Don't miss the following step. For more WNBA stories, please like, subscribe, and share. When the Fever players stood up, a policeman confronted them. Odyssey Sims is down with her head held. Fever players then make their way to the midway line. The halfway mark is not being crossed by them. The halfway line is definitely not being crossed by them. Security then arrives, pulls up, and orders them to get out. They're not moving. Sophie Cunningham was told to leave the court by a policeman who came up to her. Sophie was directly behind Caitlin Clark during the altercation. Sophie stood her stance against the cop, refusing to move. Who the hell are you telling Sophie to move, bro? She's standing on business. We don't have any. She also almost touched Sophie. Wait, hold on a second. You had better relax, police lady. You should relax. Take a look at Sophie. What did you do? Wait a moment. Little policewoman, what were you attempting to accomplish? What do you mean? What do you mean? Sophie, Caitlin, and Chloe stood at half court to see how Odyssey Sims was doing when she was hurt. A security guard abruptly entered and demanded that they leave, which led to an instant confrontation between the players and the officer. Additionally, Sophie Cunningham was a reliable teammate. Chloe, Kane, and Sophie. Leches Tres, the play of Lexi's performance. Thus, there are no more Tres Leches in good health. The injured Tres Leches are next. The dependable security guard is now on the scene. During the live webcast, I stated this. This makes me think of Waze Bros Officer D. You know if you do. A police officer contacted Indiana Fever players who were standing at the midway line in a pivotal playoff game, expressing concern for a teammate. Even though they hadn't crossed into the opponent's side, the officer insisted that they take a step back. Emotions are running high during the playoffs, and we just witnessed a police officer confront Fever players for speaking up. Therefore, Odyssey Sims is holding her head down. Players from the Fever then make their way to the midway line. The halfway mark is not being crossed by them. The halfway line is definitely not being crossed by them. Security then arrives, pulls up, and orders them to get out. They're not moving. They're not moving. The policeman approached Sophie Cunningham's face directly as she stood firmly in mid-court. Caitlin Clark and Chloe stood next to Sophie during the standoff, but Sophie refused to back down despite wearing a leg brace. I believe she got up in Sophie's face for a reason. Furthermore, I don't believe that there was any need to bow down to Sophie in that way. I don't believe so, and Sophie deserves praise for not giving up in the least. Sophie and Caitlin maintained they were only checking on Odyssey Sims when the officer gestured for them to back off. What started out as a worried moment swiftly turned into a furious altercation with security on the court, during which Odyssey fell to the ground. Everyone was worried when she laid out for a minute, right? Everyone sat at the half-court queue checking. "Hey y'all, get back," said the security man as he approached. "Return." "Hey, we're across the half-court line," Sophie was essentially saying. For example, what's the issue? Aren't we merely seeing how our teammate is doing? Alcohol poured down from the Atlanta supporters as the Fever left the court. The hostile environment was heightened by the officer incident, and the crowd's ire was directed upon Caitlin Clark. What about the GOAT? The GOAT. Caitlin Clark is making fun of the Atlanta Dream supporters who are yelling and sobbing. What about that? What about that? Caitlin Clark is demonstrating to you all how to communicate with the fans. You don't pull a Kalia Copper and take to the podium after the game to gripe about jeering supporters. The game includes it. Following the game, social media erupted, with some people accusing Sophie and Caitlin of racism simply for refusing to back down from the officer. Instead of being a straightforward concern for a teammate, the situation was turned into a racial one. It bothers me that people who play sports shouldn't be on social media. I don't really read comments anymore, so you should definitely avoid social media. Since I am aware of how awful it can get, I don't actually read the comments. Half of the tweets have replies that I don't read. I send a tweet into space. I have my own opinions to share. Additionally, I'll change my mind if fresh information becomes available. And what do you know? Online critics dubbed the incident white privilege, transforming a simple gesture of solidarity into a racial dispute. People lambasted Caitlin Clark and Sophie for their behavior near the officer rather than the game. You shouldn't follow me if you don't think this is white privilege. What? What? This find is no longer about sports. You folks didn't care about sports anyhow. I mean fools when I say you people. Fools, stupid fools. Stupid people. Warriors for social justice. You are all poisoned. You guys are poison to us. The poison is you. Fans quickly responded on social media to the officer's touching of Sophie, asking why security was attempting to remove injured players. As Caitlin Clark watched, many perceived it as needless hostility towards Sophie. Little policewoman, what were you attempting to accomplish? What do you mean? Guys, what do you mean? This was one of the funniest things ever in my opinion, bro. However, this was how Sophie and the cops interacted. Since that wasn't the only one, we now have another one here. Sophie received another one. Yes, Sophie received another one. The double standards were brought up by commentators, who said that supporters would have applauded if a black athlete had defied a white police officer. However, the identical deed was turned into a problem because Sophie and Caitlin were white. These folks simply despise their lives and are insecure. Therefore, it follows that they despise white people as well. A black girl would stand on business if she did this. Say it isn't. Soy, you literally took the words out of my lips, Jax. They would be cheering this on if it were a DJ Carrington scenario involving a black player and a white police officer. They would be congratulating this. We'll have a look at DJ staying at home. According to a social media think piece, Chloe, Caitlin, and Sophie were attempting to threaten the referee. Racist overtones were added by critics, who implied that more severe punishment would have been meted out if the races had been reversed. I don't even blame the officer, but I saw a whole article on Twitter with 15,000 likes about how all three of these players were actually trying to intimidate the referee. They said things like, "Oh, if the referee of a certain race had been there and it was players of a different race, you know the player would have been taken down on the court." I said, "No," because the security guard and police officer were there to perform their duties. Despite checking in on her black teammate, Sophie Cunningham was attacked online as a racist. A small gesture of concern was twisted into a divisive racial argument against Sophie and Caitlin by the backlash. "Please sit the ball down, guys," screamed Sophie Cunningham, aus, leg, aw, and her man. "I warned you that things would get ugly. Sophie Cunningham is a cunning jerk." I stand by that. According to one user, Sophie told the black security guard to move because she was threatening her. Calling Caitlin and Sophie privileged for even being close to half court. Others piled on. This person said, "I don't like Sophie Cunningham trying to threaten the black security guy at the game by standing there. Like, effing move, chick. She's attempting to scare the security guard." Dude, I don't get that. Because she's displaying worry. Man, she's demonstrating concern. According to her, you have to identify the security guy as black, since we're tying race into this situation. Her race is already obvious. Did you need to mention that she's black? She is clearly dragging race into this. Critics attempted to portray it as racism, and Caitlin Clark was booed loudly as she exited the court. All of a sudden, the same supporters who applauded other players for challenging referees turned against Clark and Sophie. Clea Copper, do you hear the alcohol? As they should, those Atlanta fans are jeering the Indiana Fever players. Nothing is wrong with it. There is no damage or ill. This isn't racism, Angel Reese, it's not. I apologize. It isn't. For no apparent reason, you had an entire inquiry underway at the start of the season. Sophie was accused of standing on white privilege in social media posts. Critics turned the incident into a racial one and singled out Caitlin Clark by association, rather than applauding the Fever's victory. Like the severity of it. Half of the tweets cheer. Cunningham is a trick ass. I stand on that. One user accused Sophie of intimidating the black security guard, telling her to move. Others piled on, calling Caitlin and Sophie privileged for even standing near half court. This individual stated, "I don't like Sophie Cunningham standing there trying to intimidate the black security guard at the game. Like, girl effing move. She's trying to intimidate the security guard." I don't understand that, man. Because she's showing concern. She's showing concern, man. For her, since we're putting race into what's going on here, you had to identify the security guard as a black security guard. We already see that she's black. Did you have to say she's black? So obviously she's bringing race into this. Caitlin Clark was booed heavily as she left the court with critics trying to spin it as racism. The same fans who praised other players for confronting referees suddenly turned against Clark and Sophie. You hear the boos, Clee Copper? Those are Atlanta fans booing Indiana Fever players as they should. There's nothing wrong with it. It's no harm, no foul. Angel Reese, this is not racism. This isn't, I'm sorry. It's not. You had a whole investigation going the beginning of the season for no reason. Posts on social media accused Sophie of standing on white privilege. Instead of celebrating the Fever's win, critics twisted the situation into a racial issue, targeting Caitlin Clark by association. Like how bad it can get. I don't read replies to half the tweets. I tweet into the void. I give my opinions, and I'll also retract my opinions when new evidence is there. And you know what? I'm wrong, especially when you're making hot takes on basketball. If you're wrong 50% of the time, you're probably in the upper echelon of hot take artists. Commentators argued that if any other player had done the same thing, it would have been seen as strength. But because it was Caitlin Clark and Sophie, the moment was branded racist, fueling heated backlash online. Whoever's running that social media account there, you see all the predictions from ESPN. Woo! Now you know Indeed. You all took an L. I'll give Michael Vell credit. He actually showed up in this post. He said, hey, at least I predicted it to go 3 games. Commentators predicted that Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham could define the future of Indiana. Yet moments like the police incident overshadow their talent. Instead of basketball, drama takes the headlines. They are going to go down in history as the greatest. And I'm excited about the opportunity to work with them. I'm excited about the opportunity that we have to build from those starting points and build out and for the longevity that those two could have in Indiana, in Indianapolis, and hanging banners in this. Even as the Fever walked off victorious, boos rained down. The players didn't cry or complain, showing resilience. But critics online spun the scene into a race debate rather than a sports rivalry. And then we got the Caitlin Clark and the Indiana favorite getting booed after getting off their court. You hear all those racists booing the Indiana Fever? Oh, Kathy Engelberg, we need an investigation. Analysts admitted the WNBA thrives more on drama than basketball, and incidents like the officer confrontation become magnified. For Caitlin Clark and Sophie, that means every small act is turned into controversy. That this nothing situation is going semi-viral over what I believe is very little in terms of like relevancy, and I don't think anyone did anything wrong. Like there's no way the security guard did anything wrong by stopping players from walking onto the floor. Critics demanded the league address Fever players standing at half court, calling it nonsense. But supporters pointed out the double standards, noting how other players in similar situations faced no such backlash. Get off the court. You're not coaches, or you should be given this leeway to be all up at half court. The W needs to address this nonsense. JJ Wright, are you a for real man? Are you a for real? Are you a non-binary? What's going on? I mean, there is no way in hell a grown-ass man posted that. I just can't believe it. And then went on to attack people that stood up. And there's a lot of people that stood up for Sophie last night. A lot. I don't like Sophie Cunningham standing there trying to intimidate the black security guard at the game. Some suggested the WNBA intentionally uses moments like this to generate attention. The league struggling for relevance now benefits from controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. I mean, even on the court helping them at times. But Sophie ended up retweeting this individual saying, "This is some aura." I mean, the WNBA is in such a bad state when players can't even show concern for their own teammates, man. Police officer reaches towards Sophie while Caitlin Clark stands behind her, both refusing to back down. Commentator says if a black player had done the same thing, fans would call it standing on business. Social media claims Sophie and Caitlin were intimidating the referee, adding race into the debate. Critics online call Caitlin and Sophie easy to hate, turning the focus away from basketball. And she damn near touched Sophie. Hold up, wait a minute. Police lady, you better chill out. You better chill out. Look at Sophie. What? What did you hold on? Say it ain't so. Soy Jax, you took the words right out of my mouth. If that was a black player and a white cop DJ Carrington situation, they'd be applauding this. At the end of the day, the security guard, the police officer there to do her job. The players are checking on their teammates. Commentator says, now it's racist to show concern for your teammate. mocking the double standard. Caitlin Clark responds to boos with victory hand signs, walking off proud despite the backlash. Sophie Cunningham, SS, Leg B, and her man Screech, please sit the F down. Look how disgusting this is. You bust their ass, send them home packing. That is what you do. That's what you do right there. It's that simple. It's that simple. Dubs up, dubs up.